Alrighty, this is chapter 3 of Life of Pi. I was named after a swimming pool. Quite peculiar considering my parents never took to water. One of my father's earliest business contacts was Francis Adirbasami. He became a good friend of the family. I called him Mamaji. Mama being the Tamil word for uncle and ji being a suffix used in India to indicate respect and affection. When he was a young man, long before I was born, Mamji was a champion competitive swimmer. The champion of all South India. He looked the part his whole life. My brother Ravi once told me that when Mamji was born, he didn't want to give up on breathing water, so the doctor, to save him, had to take him by the feet and swing him above his head around and around. It did the trick, said Ravi, wildly spinning his head above his head. He coughed out water and started breathing air, but it was forced all his flesh to the blood in his upper body. That's why his chest is so thick and legs are so skinny. I believed him. Ravi was mirrorless teaser. The first time he called Mamji the Mr. Fish to my face, I left banana peel in his bed. Even in his 60s, when he was a little stoop and a lifetime of counter obstetric gravity had begun to nudge flesh downstairs, Mamji swam 30 lengths every morning in the pool, the Aurobindo ashram. He tried to teach my parents to swim, but never got them to go beyond wading up to their knees at the beach and making ludicrous round motions with their arms, which, if they were practicing a breaststroke, made them look as if they were walking through the jungle, spreading the tall grass ahead of them, or if the front crawl, as if they were running down the hill, flaying their arms so as not to fall. Ravi was just unenthusiastic. Mamji had to wait until I came into the picture to find a willing disciple. The day I came of swimming age, which to mother's distress, Mamji claimed was 7, he brought me down to the beach, spread his arms seaward, and said, "This is my gift to you," and then nearly drowned you, claimed mother. I remained faithful to my aquatic guru. Under his watchful eye, I lay at the beach and fluttered my legs and scratched away at the sand with my own hands, turning my head at every stroke to breathe. I must have looked like a child throwing a peculiar slow motion tantrum in the water as he held me at the surface. I tried my best to swim. It was much more difficult than on land, but Mamji was patient and encouraging. When he felt that I had progressed sufficiently, we turned our backs on the laughing and the shouting, the running and the splashing, the blue-green waves with the bubbly surf, and headed towards the proper rectangularity and the formal flatterness and the paying admission, the ashram swimming pool. I went with him 3 times a week throughout my childhood. A Monday, Wednesday, Friday early morning ritual was the clockwork regularity of a good front crawl stroke. I have a vivid memory of this dignified old man stripping down the nakedness next to me, his own body slowly merging as neatly disposed of each item clothing. Decency began to salvage at the very end of the slight turning away from the magnificent pair of imported athletic bathing trunks. He stood straight and he was ready. It had an epic simplicity, swimming instructions, which in the time of the swimming practice, grueling, but there was a deep pleasure doing a stroke with increasingly easy speed over and over till hypnosis, practically the water churning from molten lead to light liquid. It was only my own guilty pleasure that I returned to the sea, beckoned that a mighty wave that crashed down and reached me in the humble tidal ripples, gently lassened the caught their willing Indian boy. My gift to Manji one birthday, I must have been 13 or so, was 2 full lengths of credible butterfly. I finished, so I spent. I could hardly wave to him. Beyond the activity of swimming, there was the talk of it. It was the talk of father love. The more vigorously he resisted actually swimming, the more he fancied it. Swim lore was his vacation talk from the work day talk to running a zoo. Water without hypnotism was so much more manageable than water with one. Manji studied in Paris for 2 years. Thanks to the colonial administration, he had the time of his life. This was in early 1930s when the French were still trying to make Pondicherry as Gallic as the British were trying to make the rest of India Britannic. I don't recall exactly what Mamaji studied, something commercial, I suppose. He was a great storyteller, but I forget about his studies in the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, or the cafes of the Champs-Élysées. All his stories had to do with swimming pools, swimming competitions. For example, there was a Piscine Deligny. The city's oldest pool, dating back to 1796, an open-air barge moored the Quai d'Orsay and the venue for the swimming events in the 1900s Olympics, but none of the times were recognized by the International Swimming Federation because this pool was 6 meters too long. The water in the pool came straight up from the sea, unfiltered and unheated. It was cool and dirty, said Manji. The water, having crossed all of Paris, came in foul enough that people in the pool made it utterly disgusting. In the conspiratorial whispers and the shocking details back then had claimed and assured the French had very low standards in personal hygiene. Deligny was enough. Bain Royal, another latrine of his scene, was worse, at least Deligny. They scooped out the dead fish. Nonetheless, an Olympic pool in the Olympic pool touched the immortal glory. Though it was cesspool, Manjin spoke of the Deligny with a food smile. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a lot of these words, so I'm so sorry, but they're like really hard to pronounce. Anyways, one was better off in Piscines, Château-Lanzun, Rovet, Ordoul, Boulevard de la Guerre. Yep. They were indoor pools with roofs on land and open year-round. Their water was supplied with condensation from the steam engines nearby factories, and so was cleaner and warmer. But these pools were still a bit dingy and tended to be crowded. There were so much gob and spit floating in the water, I thought I was swimming in jellyfish, chuckled Mamshi. Ew! The Pincing Herbert, Larder, Rollin, and Botte Ox Calais, bright modern spacious pools fled by Astrogen Wells. They set the standard of excellence and municipal swimming pools. There were Piscine Day, Tourless, of course. The city's other great Olympic pool, inaugurated during the second Paris Games in 1924, and there were still others, many of them, but not swimming pools, in Mamshin's eyes matched the glory of Piscine Molitor. It was the crowning aquatic glory of Paris, indeed, of the entire civilization world. It was a pool of gods, would have delighted to swim Molitor had the best competitive swimming clubs in Paris. There were 2 pools, an indoor and outdoor. Both were big, small oceans. The indoor pool always had 2 lanes reserved for swimmers who wanted to do lengths. The water was so clean and clear, you could have used it to make the morning coffee. Wooden chaining cabins, blue-white, surrounded the pool onto the floors. You could look down and see everyone and everything. The porters who marked your cabin door with chalk to show that it was occupied were limping old men, friendly and ill-tempered way. No amount of shouting to tomfool ever ruffled them. The showers gushed soothing water. There was a steam room and an exercise room. The outside pool became the skating rink in the winter. There was a bar, a cafeteria, and a large sunning deck. Even 2 small branches of real sand. Every bit of the tile, brass, wood gleams. It was always the only pool that made Mamjin fall silent, his memory making too many links to mention. Mamjin remembered father dreamed. That is how I name my name when I entered this world. A last welcome addition to my family 3 years after Ravi painting Molitor Patel. Thank you.